Hey guys, how's it going? It's been about 5 months since my last video update. No excuses really. I think I just got lazy and got a bit overwhelmed thinking about all the crazy stuff that's happened. And kind of got overwhelmed thinking about all the things I needed to share. And so anyway, here I am. Pretty much that's been the whole school year. Need to update you guys on, but I want to share some cool testimonies and on this journey of hearing God's voice and taking more risks and pursuing after things that God's called me to. I think one of the things I shared about is I felt like I wanted to become a preacher, and I've been volunteering for more speaking engagements, and probably in the last 4 months I've preached 6 times at different ministry trips that I went with leaders, and we do little mock church services every couple weeks for one of my classes. So I've been preaching about having love encounters with God, what it means just to be loved by God, and the romance of the Lord, and also dreaming with God. Pretty much my life messages. And yeah, so that's been fun, just seeing my heart come alive. I really like yelling into the mic. There's something about that. There's like a fiery side of me. I feel like that's just kind of coming more alive. And the ministry trips, I've went to Casper, Wyoming with Steve Backlund. I went on an unofficial ministry trip with 3 friends to a church in Oregon where we had pretty much we're in charge of the entire service, so we could do whatever we thought God was doing in the room. And then most recently I went on a trip to Springfield, Missouri for a youth conference, and Jason Chin was the guest speaker. Oh my God, I don't know what to share. There's so many things that God's been doing. On one of those trips, I was up on stage, and we were supposed to prophesy over people in the audience. And, I've prophesied a lot one-on-one, but not in front of like 400 other people. So there's like a little bit extra pressure. You want to be encouraging, and you don't want to be wrong either. This impacted me a lot. The only thing I called out a woman. She was highlighted to me. She was sitting way in the back, and the only thing I kept on hearing in my mind was that she's an intimate lover of Jesus. And when I first heard that, I was like, man, I wish there was something more profound, something even more specific. But by faith, I just said what I heard in my mind, and I just told this woman, you're an intimate lover of Jesus, and there's nothing more that you want than just being in the presence of the Lord. This woman just starts crying, bawling her eyes out, and later that night she comes up to me and she says that my husband of 25 years passed away last month, and when you were speaking that word over me, I felt the romance of God, and I knew that was for me. And the following day, she was so touched. She wrote me a letter and gave me a gift that she had made for her husband over 20 years ago. And I was like, oh my God, I was crying with her and just admiring how amazing God is, and how sometimes, as I'm practicing hearing God's voice, sometimes I don't know, I think I have to make it fancy or get disappointed if it's not something really specific and profound, but all I have to do is obey God's voice, and He'll do the rest. It's not my job to move people or make them cry or impact their lives. God's already doing it. He's already preparing hearts. He knows who needs to talk to, and all I have to do is obey His voice. And then the following night, we were with a bunch of young adults, and we each got to share our testimonies, and then we taught about 30 young adults in Wyoming how to hear God's voice and how to prophesy and how to get words of knowledge. And so we played a bunch of games to practice doing these things, and after about an hour to the Bethel team, which I'm part of, like we wanted to prophesy over individuals in the young adult group. And again, I mean, there's just like the human side of me that's like, oh man, like, I hope I get this right. We're like teaching them how to hear God's voice, and since there's about 30 of them, and since they're close friends, they're actually going to know if you're getting these prophetic words or words of knowledge right or wrong. And so it was my turn to prophesy over someone, and this girl got highlighted to me, and I just started saying whatever came to my mind, and I just saw her working in an orphanage, holding a black baby, and that she was literally just playing around in the dirt, having a good time. And as I'm saying these things, like everybody was just started saying, "Oh my God!" Like they started screaming, and I didn't know why they were getting so excited. And later, this girl told me that she works in an orphanage in Haiti, and she loves orphans. She holds orphans all the time, and that just a couple weeks ago, she was literally playing around in the dirt with the orphans. And so I think that encouraged the congregation, that encouraged me, that encouraged her, that God speaks to us, through pictures and through impressions and through feelings. So I don't know, it was growing in confidence, because in my mind, when I first had that thought, I actually started doubting, because I'm like, man, that's so generic. That is just a picture that most people have. Like, it's such a cliche word. But when I decided to take a risk and actually share that, it ended up being the very thing that encouraged everyone. So, oh man, so it's been like that the last several months. This year's been interesting in terms of my journey of hearing God's voice, because for like a year and a half, I've been practicing that, but it's been in one-on-one settings with people that I know pretty well, so it's a very safe environment for me to practice. But then this past year, it's been practicing with other people watching in public places, and regardless of whether I'm right or wrong, just feeling comfortable knowing that, hey, it's okay, and God loves me. I'm secure in being a son, and I'm not gonna get better at hearing God's voice unless I have the freedom to be able to get things wrong. So yeah, that was cool. And I'll just share a handful more testimonies. And I think every 2 weeks, I told you I go out onto the streets of a nearby city in Chico, and we love on people. And I think during Valentine's Day, just approached a woman that seemed a bit discouraged. She was sitting, I don't know if she was homeless, and she was sitting by a tree trunk, and I just said, "Hey, happy Valentine's Day. How are you doing today?" And she looked at me, and she just said, there have been better days." And I just sat down next to her and said, "Hey, what's going on? Is it okay if is there anything that we could pray for you about?" And she didn't say much, but she's like, "Yeah, I wouldn't mind that." And we just started encouraging her and telling her what we thought about how God saw her, and that she is loved, that she's like really lovable, and that I see so much strength in her, and that she's an overcomer, and that she does relationships really well. And even though there might have been some hard things in her life, that God's actually meeting her, and just sharing truth. And she just starts crying uncontrollably. She had sunglasses on, and her makeup just started falling down her face. And me and my friend, we just hugged her, probably for like 5 minutes, side to side, and as we listened to her story. And I don't know, it was interesting, because before I approached her, everything within me is like, oh, I don't want to be here, I don't want to do evangelism, because sometimes it's just a thing, like a checklist that I check off. But when I actually got over myself, and there was like hurting people out there, and she just needed a friend, someone to listen, and someone to hug her and just tell her that she's loved, It's a really simple message, but like people are just really hungry and dying to hear that that she's loved, you know. So that was super encouraging. Oh man. Hopefully, like testimonies. I mean, these testimonies for me are impactful because the days that I'm not feeling so good, I could always go back to these key moments and think about the nature of who God is and how He's actually taken me on this journey. So hopefully, it doesn't sound like I'm like boasting or talking about myself, but I'm just sharing about the journey that I've been and the ways that God's come through in those moments. Did another ministry trip. We were speaking at a church in Oregon, and there were only about 20-30 people in the congregation. The pastor super empowering and trusting, and gave over the entire service to the four of us. We're second-year students. So I got to preach about dreaming. My friend Cody spoke about just the supernatural lifestyle that we could live in. And then it kind of went on into like a healing service. We started praying for people with bad backs, knee problems, one leg being taller than the other, and people were getting healed, and I just felt like God just kept on saying throughout that weekend that there was a couple there that was thinking about adopting, and so I took the mic, and I was really nervous because when I looked into the audience, there were only 3 couples there that it could possibly be. So there were 20 people there in the entire audience, only 3 couples. And so I was like super nervous because I was like, man, if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I took a risk because I was pretty sure that that's what Holy Spirit was saying. So I got on the mic and said, is there a couple here that has been recently thinking about adopting children? And then one couple actually stands up, and which gives me even more faith to say, well, God is saying that you're ready. You're ready to adopt internationally, and the kids that you adopt, you're going to actually be a catalyst for this place, for people to actually adopt. And like there's a thing on family and adoption and restoration in your life. And I just kept on saying, you're ready, you're ready. Later I find out that this family, it's the pastor's son and his wife, who is relatively new with the Lord. And she just started dreaming with God and sharing with God, like, and getting excited about the possibility of adopting. And that was like the first dream that she had. The desire of her heart is to adopt internationally. But she started doubting a lot this past week about whether they were ready or not. And then God actually used me to share with them and to encourage them, no, you're actually ready to do this. I was blown away. God is crazy. I mean, God is really fun too, you know? And then like later that night, there may be like 20 people left, and some people have filtered out, and my spirit was saying that there's somebody in the audience that has been experiencing Holy Spirit, and they actually want to rededicate their life to Jesus. And I've never done like an altar call before. But I just, again, I kind of took the mic and said, hey, there's someone here that's been experiencing the presence of God, and they want to receive Jesus. If that's you, please come up to the front. This girl, she starts bawling. She stands up, comes to the front, and says, like, my body's been tingling and feeling like heat all over my body, and this is my first time at this church, but like everything that has been spoken, like I know it's God, and I want Jesus in my life. And so we just led her, led her into receiving Jesus. And it was just like such a precious moment, like someone that was just so hungry for more, and she actually recognized that what she needed was Jesus's love. So yeah, man, like I was just so pumped up, like seeing God move. Hmm. And man, what else? There was oh yeah, I went on this ministry trip with Jason Chin, who's a guy I've been following on YouTube. He's just this fiery, loves Jesus, like hits people on the street, heals them, he prays for them, and just people get to know Jesus like left and right. And he posts all these encounters that people have on YouTube, whether people get healed or not. And so it's actually been an inspiration just watching his videos over the last year. And I didn't know him, but I just knew him from afar, and he was like a Christian celebrity in my mind. So I was a bit nervous before I traveled with him, but just getting to hang out with him in person, doing ministry together at the airports as we traveled, and hearing about his life, I was so inspired. To share some crazy stuff that happened. Even at the airports as we're just walking, several girls actually whistled at us, and the three of us were like, what? Were girls whistling at us? So Jason took that as a sign to actually start talking to them. So we end up going back to this group of 3-4 girls. I think they were just bored and just were wanting to kid around, and Jason introduced me and my friend David as you have no idea who these guys are. They're like the most famous dream interpreters. And we're just having a good time, and they're like, really? So Jason asked these girls, have any of you guys had any reoccurring dreams lately? And everyone said, no, not really. And then he saw I think he saw a horse in his imagination. And so he said, are you sure? I think there's someone here that dreams about horses. And then the girl on the left she gets a bit freaked out, and she says, yeah, how did you know? I've been having these reoccurring nightmares of a white horse that has red eyes, and it's bloodied all over, and it keeps attacking me at night. And so my friend David asked some questions, and basically she had a horse, and she rode it, and a couple of days later the horse passed away. And so my friend David just interpreted that dream, which seemed pretty obvious to us, that it wasn't her fault that her horse passed away, and that she needed to forgive herself. Which sounds really obvious to us, but to this woman, she was like, whoa, never thought about that before. And which led us, to more conversations. But oh man, and then we kind of did that again. We came across a couple girls that were working at the counter, and started asking them if they had any dreams lately, and one did. We interpreted it, and her friend had a bad foot, and she was in a lot of pain. We prayed for her, the pain left, and we got to share Jesus and shared our information with them, and just started encouraging them. There was another lady who Jason, while we were talking to her, Jason felt pain shoot down his left leg, his back and his left leg, and got a word of knowledge that said sciatic nerve issues. And so she was freaked out, and so he asked her if she felt pain throughout her leg, and she said yes, and she was freaked out, and he just said, hey, God wants to heal you right now. One of the legs was longer than the other, and he prayed for it, and the leg grew out right before our eyes. She starts crying, and she basically told us that she had known Jesus a long time ago, but fell away, got pregnant, kind of distanced herself from God, and she wanted to believe that God was real, but she had never experienced him before. And when her leg grew out, she knew and felt the love of Jesus for the first time, and she said, this is my born again experience. And she was so curious and wanted to learn more about who God was. And my friend Jason, he wanted to switch seats with her friend so that they could talk more about Jesus on the plane. When they get on the plane, it turns out that their seats were already right next to each other. God had divinely set this appointment up. There's so many details to the story, but he worked out every detail, and he marked us. I mean, before we actually got onto the plane, we wrote down clues of who God wanted us to talk to. I heard American flag. That was the clue that I wrote down on my sheet of paper. My friend David had the clue Mark. Turns out that this girl that I've been talking about had an American flag on her, that was her t-shirt, and her Mark was her husband's name. And she happened to be on our plane, sitting next to Jason, our ministry trip leader. So God used somehow every little detail to work together to love on this woman and to accept Jesus. Ooh. All right, and oh my gosh. And then on this ministry trip, I got to preach and just felt so much love and compassion for the youth. These youth, like 13 to 17-year-old kids, are on fire for the Lord. They actually run services entirely by themselves, and it's such an empowering culture. I've never seen a culture where they include the students as part of the leadership teams, like with other 30-year-olds, and their opinion counts just as much as a 35-year-old on the leadership team. And speaking to them, it really inspired me of what building an empowering culture could look like. Not to control them, but giving them choices. I mean, because I've read books about what it looks like to have an empowering culture, but they were living it out. And oh man, during one of our breakout sessions, this girl who had not been able to feel anything in her leg for her entire life, because when she was 2 years old, she fell out of the semi-truck. Her dad was a semi-truck driver, and her dad accidentally ran over her leg. So she had multiple surgeries on her leg, but just she couldn't feel anything. And then we were training people on words of knowledge that God speaks through. Sometimes we might be able to feel the pain or numbness in somebody else. And this 12-year-old guy named Zach felt numbness all throughout his left leg, and he asked hey, does anyone else feel this? No one else responded. But after our breakout session, the girl sitting next to me, Rachel, said, hey, I have numbness all over my leg. And so Zach, this 12-year-old kid, prays for her, and she, for the first time, felt sensation in her foot, and she starts bawling and starts crying uncontrollably, and she's like, I can't believe this is happening. So she had stopped asking for prayer when she was 12 years old. She's currently 17, because she was so disappointed that nothing happened. And in that moment, she felt air come across. I mean, her leg would constantly be bloodied when she went rollerblading, because she could have scratches or cuts, but she could never feel it. And so every time she goes to bed, she would, lift up her pants and it would just be bloodied. And now she was feeling sensation. We were just like, oh my God, God is so good. The next day she comes back and testifies that scars were disappearing on her leg, and that muscles were actually getting reattached. She has scoliosis, and she got healed of that as well. Interestingly, God used this 12-year-old boy who's never prayed for healing before, never seen a miracle in his life, and God uses him to heal her. And then he was actually going around praying for people the following day. I just love how God works out these details. My faith has been increasing. I preached about how to heal, a teaching on how to pray for healing. And, I think most of you guys know I was healed of a 20-year apple allergy 2 years ago while I was at school. And then I seen a lot of actually people with allergies been healed since then. So I released that testimony to about 30 kids in the room. I call them kids. I mean, they're not kids. They're young adults, And so everyone started raising their hands about how they needed healing for allergies. There were people with... 2 people had apple allergies. 1 person had sinus issues. This boy was allergic to everything: wheat, dairy, cheese, nuts, everything you could imagine. And so then we pray for them. And as soon as the breakout session is over, one of the girls is looking around to eat an apple to see if she got healed. Every single person who had an allergy for dinner goes to a restaurant and starts eating the very foods that they're allergic to. Man, their faith and their boldness and courage, I mean, challenged me. Every single one of them got healed. They came back and were so excited, and they're just eating apples or eating nuts, eating meats and sauce, whatever that they were allergic to, and they were just so excited. They were so happy, and they were just testifying at the night service about what God had done in their lives. I think the parents were even happier than the kids, because I'm sure the parents were worried, and it probably inconvenienced them actually cooking all these different meals just for their kids. But anyway, I mean, besides all the physical healings, people accepted Jesus for the first time. They were encountering the love of God the first time. They were getting healed of just what other people thought. And I mean, girl was admitted that she had been self-harming herself and just cutting herself. And God took her on an encounter to heaven. She actually went to heaven and started telling us in detail everything that she saw. And then the night after that, the scars that were on her arm from self-harm actually just all disappeared miraculously. And I don't know, it's crazy. So it's just, my spirit's been getting just really stirred up, and as I'm walking into I think more of what God's called me to do. So that's been exciting. On a personal level, I think my closest friends know, but 4 months ago, me and my girlfriend broke up, which is really painful, probably the most painful thing that I've ever gone through. And I mean, if you want to hear more details, we could talk about that in person, but it's just been a really interesting journey of being able to process through pain in a healthy way, because with my past history with depression, anxiety, just avoidance and just ignoring things were pretty common, and that was just like the familiar way of dealing with pain. But this season of my life, actually addressing it, talking to God about it, and even though it's painful, like giving God room to speak in that vulnerable place, and surrounding myself with good people, and still in uncomfortable moments, still choosing to minister every Sunday, and reaching out to people, even though even though it was really hard emotionally. But God's given me grace, supernatural grace, to keep being in relationship with Him and not using that as an excuse to get mad at God. So it's been a really raw but really rewarding time, and not just saying that just because it sounds like the Christian thing to say. Like, that's just been true in my life this past year. It's been really a journey of learning to live by my spirit, not my emotions. And a lot of times my emotions is in line with my spirit, but sometimes my emotions lie, because a lot of the emotions are based upon past experiences that aren't healthy. And so, on a practical level, I think I shared this 5 months ago, it's the same story. Sometimes I just don't feel like loving other people. But then in that moment, I'll go and pray for someone. And as I'm praying for someone, God's compassion and love would just overwhelm me. And I would just start weeping. And I would start loving them from that place. And I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I'm getting used to, I'm getting more comfortable with this idea of trusting Him, even though I don't feel like it, and obeying His voice, and just getting to know Him more intimately. So yeah, it's been crazy. And for next, God's been opening up so many doors. I've been praying about what to do next year. School ends next month, and God's been opening up so many doors, doors in Thailand, opportunities to move to Africa, I got a full-time job offer in LA, and but I feel like God's leading me to stay in Reading one more year to do an internship with Jason Chin, the guy that I went on a ministry trip with a couple weeks ago. There's just a special connection there, and he kind of lives the lifestyle that I want to live, and I think that the lifestyle I want to live and the values that I'm building up inside, I haven't fully gotten it yet. And so I think just it's sort of like an apprenticeship. You do life together. We love on people. I'll be helping out with a bunch of his ministry. I'll be preaching more and getting feedback from itinerant ministers who travel all around the world. I'll be a coach for his online academy where he teaches people virtually how to love people supernaturally. So I'd be a coach for those people taking his classes. And I'll get to travel with him and do more ministry. So I'm just like super excited about the next stage of my life. I'll probably be in LA this summer, working full time for my current employer, and then come back to Reading in the fall, and see what else God does. But yeah, life is good. I've been bonding with my housemates, a lot of laughs, playing a lot of board games, mainly Settlers of Catan, and just getting to know people, feeling a bit sentimental, just because I'm going to have to say goodbye to a lot of my close friends come May, and a lot of them aren't coming back next year. So, I'll probably be in New York, New Jersey area for a week or two in early June. So if you're seeing this and you're in that area, I'd love to hook up. But congratulations. Oh my God, it's been 30 minutes. So congratulations if you made it this far. Love you. I know I haven't talked to a lot of you in person in a while. Please send me a note, say hi. Miss you, bless you, and everything that God's doing. And hopefully we'll catch up soon. Okay, bye.